ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिः रजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैर्तुष्ट्वांसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति नः इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नः तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to folks who have joined for Gita Chinthana Chapter 4, led by G.V. Srinivasanji. So, over to you, Srinivasanji.
Okay, thank you, Madhusudanji. I hope everybody can hear me all right. One of you can respond.
Yeah,
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Madhusudanji. So, yes, Madhusudanji said that we are going to be, for the next few sessions, we will be looking at the chapter 4, that is Jnana Yoga in Bhagavad Gita. So, again, first let me do the Mangalacharana Shloka and then do the introduction. Devam Narayanam Natva Sarvadosa Vivarchitam Paripurnam Gurum Chang Gitartam Vakshami Deshtaha Samasta Guna Sampurnam Sarvadosha Vivarchitam Paripurnam Vivarchim Narayanam Namaskritya Gita Tatparya Muchyate Gunagana Nilayam Patimramaya Jagadaga Dahanam Cha Vasuvi Sunam Munikula Tilakam Cha Purnabodham Gurunapi Paramam Gurum Chame Vande Indra Vadanam Boja Raja Hamsaya Vishnave Amandananda Sandoha Sundara Kritaye Namaha Lakshmi Narayanam Natva Purna Podan Gurunapi Kuruma Sri Krishna Gita Ya Bhashya Tuttartha Sangraham Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is the Mangalacharana Slokas from Gita Bhashya and Gita Tatparya of Ananda Tirtha, and then the Gunai Gana Nilayam, starting with that, and then Indra Vadanam Boje, they are from the Prameya Deepika, and then Jnana Deepika, that is the work of the Tika for those two Bhashyas and Tatparya by Jaichittamuni, and then Lakshmi Narayanam Natva, that was by Raghavendra Tirtha in his Gita Vivruti. So, along with these Mangalacharanas, so those Acharyas are bowed to their gods and gurus. So similarly, so I also bow down to my acharyas and my guru, Sri Keshava Rao, and also to the elders, Sri Madhusudanji, Sureshji, and then my fellow students in this satsanga. So thank you all for giving me this opportunity to coordinate this Gita chapter 4. And then this gives me another opportunity to revise and to do some kinchit manana. So I have kind of partitioned this chapter into 3 sessions. So today is session 1. We will have next 2 more sessions. So in this session, of course, we will start with an introduction to this chapter. And then in terms of subtopics in this chapter, I have kind of given few. So in today, after the introduction, we will look into that distinction of Krishna from others, and his purpose, his gunas, and then what is he doing and all those things. So that will be kind of taken in detail from verses 5 through 15, and then that again, we split it into 2 with verses 5 through 10 expounded by Madhusudanji, and then the verses 11 through 15 by Venkateshji. So again, I thank you for those 2 people who have come forward and then have kind of offered to share their perspectives. In the subsequent sessions are broken down into Nishkama Karma Swarupa. So that will be done by Prakashji. And Sureshji is helping me to find 2 other volunteers who could be doing the shlokas 25 through 42 in the next month. And then the 3rd session, we will have a guest lecture. We haven't
I am available.
Okay, thank you. And then we will have a short summary and quiz, and then we will look into. We will give then we will have the person, whoever is leading the chapter 5, give an intro at the end. So this is how we would probably kind of do that. And then before going, so as you can see that in chapter 3, we saw Karma Yoga. In fact, the Karma Yoga started in as early as chapter 2 with Karmanya Adhikaraste. And then in chapter 3, so Krishna expounded more on Karma Yoga. Coming down to the fourth chapter, the concept of Karma Yoga still continues, right? We are going to see the Karma Swarupa, going to see the types of karmas or yajnas that are done. And then that leads into the Jnana Yoga. Because after all, this Nishkama Karma Yoga is a Jnana Upaya. It is to get Jnana and then Apraksha Jnana and so on. So it is a prerequisite to get Jnana anyway. So you see that the karma still continues in a significant part, even in this Jnana Yoga, in this chapter, and then the Jnana Yoga is introduced at the very end. So most of it is still Karma Swarupa. But then in today, we are going to see Krishna's purpose and gunas and everything. We've been doing Karma Yoga, then we are going to do something else, and then we are going to come back into Karma Yoga. So this one, so there is something like an insert that at the outset doesn't seem to fit. But then we will Madhusudanji and then Venkateshji will probably take you through and then say that how it still fits in there, and then it is not necessarily like a diversion or whatever, and then it is because for the flow it is needed to do that, and then so we will see how it progresses today. Okay, so with that, so let me give an introduction with using the first 4 slokas and then turn it over to Madhusudanji. So to do that, to get into the chapter 4, we want to kind of look at the context. So the context has to come from the prior chapters. So we are going back all the way to the beginning of the 3rd chapter where Arjuna asked the question, right? Hey Krishna, you've been telling me about jnana, and then how jnana is important, because just then he had talked about in the end of 2nd chapter 2 about approximate jnanis. So then Arjuna is asking Krishna, then why are you asking me to kind of fight this war, right? Tat kim karmani gore mam niyojesi. So why are you asking me to fight the war? You should have told me to kind of go after this jnana. Why are you asking me to do this gora karma? And then he is asking, pleading with Krishna, you tell me one. You have told me you have talked about karma, you have talked about jnana. You tell me which one is right for me, which one will bring me shreyas. So that is Arjuna's question. So the further action, answers and all are in that context. We are looking at what is right for Arjuna and what is right for sadhaka. And then as we already said, that even to get jnana, one has to do karma. So this karma is something is not going to escape nobody. So that is a prerequisite even for jnana. So that is where Krishna starts with responding, saying that even though there is the karma marga and then jnana marga, but it doesn't mean that karma is devoid of jnana or jnana is devoid of karma. They're always a mixture. It is the predominance of one over the other we call jnana marga or karma marga, right? That again depends on the adhikari or the yogyata of the person. Some adhikaris like a Sanaka, Sanandana, Nevrate, or everybody, they are better suited for jnana marga because most of the time is spent doing that, and they are not burden themselves with a lot of activities. Okay, their activities are all about meditation and pata pravachana, and then those kinds, right? But then there are like people like King Janaka and all, right? So who are kind of they're jnanis too, but then they also have additional responsibilities towards governing kingdom, take care of the people, and be a role model for others and other ones, right? So Karmainaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya. So they got their salvation by doing karma, right? And then where their jnana is too. And then Krishna's message is, hey Arjuna, you belong to that category, and then you should follow what they have done. Sampashyan kartum arhasi. So that is what Krishna's message to Arjuna is, that Arjuna is belonging to that category and he cannot shy away from doing karma, and then that he should follow King Janaka and all. So that is the kind of pretext or the background through which we are going to get into the fourth chapter. So in the fourth chapter, the Krishna starts by saying that he taught this in the beginning to Vivaswan, that is, we are talking about at the beginning of a Manvantara. Then he then passed on to his son Manu. There are 14 Manvantaras and then and 14 Manus, right? So Vivaswan has a son who will be one of those, and then so from that, and then he then talked to his son Ishwaku, and then so on. Right? Imam Vyasvate Yoham Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vasman Manume Praha Manu Ishwagave Bhavit. And then one other thing that what Krishna wants to say is to Arjuna at this time. The Arjuna was, yes, he was in a vulnerable position, right? He had put down his weapons, sat down and everything. I'm not going to fight. So Krishna wants to kind of tell him that he's not telling Arjuna something that he just whipped up in that last minute, just to kind of get him going. What Krishna is saying is his words are nothing but what the Vedas, that is Apaurusha Vakya, that is nobody made it, that what was there all the time. He is basically teaching Arjuna the Shastra itself, right? That he is telling, I'm not telling you anything new. I am telling you what was there before. And only thing is, over time, these Shastra, or the knowledge, gets eroded. The Kalaneha Mahata Yoga Nashta Parantapa, right? This knowledge gets eroded. And so, but I am telling you this because you are dear to me and you are also my devotee. So I am telling you this. It's not that I am trying to kind of convince you to somehow kind of or cheat you to kind of doing this war. What I am asking you to do is what the Shastra actually said. So by this, you will get only Shreyas. Because remember, that is what Arjuna is asking. What will bring me Shreyas? Adhering to what Shastra says and do as per the Shastra is what brings Shreyas, not only to Arjuna, everybody. That is the message, and that is why Krishna had to tell that whatever he has been saying has been told in the Shastra already. That is what he is saying. It is ancient, right? Puratanaha. And he is also talking, whatever he is talking about is avyayam, that is imperishable. That means it is there all the time. Got eroded or got weakened or whatever, but it doesn't mean that it was not existing. So Krishna is telling whatever that was there already. Okay, but maybe Arjuna was not able to comprehend at that time. He lost it. That is his Tirodhana. And that is why he is kind of putting this thing down. So the Shastra itself has to be imbibed back to Arjuna. And he also wants to say that, hey, by the way, all these kings and everything, these Rajarishis, they have been practicing this. So it is something that is being practiced by your predecessors. So you are also supposed to do that. And that is what the message is, what kind of Krishna is saying. Okay. Then Arjuna asked the question. Param bhavato janma, param janma vivasvataha, atametat vijaniyam, tvam ado proktavaniti. So he's saying that, hey, Krishna, you are born only few days ahead of me. Your birth is also very recent. Then you are claiming that you taught this one at the beginning, beginning of the Manvantara, right? And all those things, even before, because you are taught to the sun god Vivaswan. So, how am I to kind of know this? right? Because you have said that you have existed, had existed, right? Matvevaham chatunasham matve me janatipa, right? So yes, I believe that yes, we have existed in everything, and we have had many births and then many bodies. Dehantara prapti, dera tatra mohyasi. I believe that. So we might have had, but then I don't remember anything. How come that you are able to recall? And then so how am I to know? So that is one of the Arjuna's question. But then we will see that this Arjuna's question is much more deeper than this chronological order or whatever that in that one. That is because even along throughout in the beginning, even in the Krishna's Upadesha from the second chapter onwards, up until now, at times there had been places where Krishna has been kind of throwing some hints that, hey, I am somebody different than you, than anybody. Okay, I'm special. Because he has said, even in the second chapter, we are talking about Siddha Prajna, right? He's talking about Tani Sarvani Samyamya Yutta Asita Matparaha. Right? The Siddha Prajnas are able to fix their mind. He says, now this is the first time he's talking about in first person. In me. And knowing me as a supreme Paraha, Matparaha. Krishna says that, hey, he is something extraordinary. He is different than others. But at that time, Arjuna did not stop him and then question him because context was different, was in a role, and Krishna seems to have kind of mentioned it somewhat casually or whatever at that time. So Arjuna didn't quite stop him there and then ask for him, hey, what did he mean by Matpara? He didn't do that at that time. And then again, there are a few other instances too, when he's talking about the action, when even I am doing action, right? Because that time he says, if I don't do, right, nakuryam, then what happens? All these words will collapse into themselves or they'll be lost, right? And then upahanyam ima praja. And these people will be, he will be the cause. I will be the cause of the death of the people. See, all these actions are extraordinary that a normal human being or anybody will not be able to do. So that is why I'm calling in the top as a special category, Vijatiya category. There is a thing called Sajati and Vijati. Sajati means among the category that one is great. It's like a calling Stavaranam Himalaya, right? Among the mountains, the Himalaya is the greatest. So they're all of the same category among the mountains, right? That is called Sajatiya Vibhuti. Vijati means it is something that it is not in that category, but it is somewhere else, right? That means it doesn't even belong in there. That is what it means, right? It's like Nakshastranam Aham Sashi. Yeah, Shashi is Chandra. Chandra is not a nakshatra, right? But why he is still making comparison? Because it is so bright compared to the nakshatras. So that is like Vijati, right? Vijati means that is the other group will not have. It is a special category. So that Krishna is showing that I am of that category. I am of a different category, right? And then he also says in the third chapter again, Mayi Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya. So he said, dedicate all your actions unto me. So he must be something special for everybody to dedicate their actions to them, right? So he's like in the Lord. That is what he has claimed before. He me matamidam nityam anutishtanti. So he said, my matam, right? Me matam. So it is my teaching. And then those whoever followed my teaching, right? Puchante, right? They are liberated from karma bihi, from all the karmas and everything. That means if you follow me, that, something good happens to you, right? That is from in kind of Arjuna's perspective, right? That is his, that is what is good for him. So with all these things, Krishna has already kind of given a clue and hinted, saying that I am different than you or anybody else. I am in a different category itself. So Arjuna now, with the context of him kind of having a birth much before and all those things, Arjuna decides hey, this is the right time. And he interjects Krishna and then asks him, hey, tell me more. Who are you? Why are you here? And what are your, and then tell me more about yourself. So that is where Arjuna's question is. And hence the so-called apparent deviation, because Krishna had so many times kind of given a clue that is different. Now the time is right. And Arjuna wanted to get from Krishna's mouth himself. He is the Lord himself, right? It is like getting it out of the horse's mouth itself. So that is the right time for this, and hence Arjuna has asked, and Krishna is going to say. And when we're talking about a horse's mouth, right? I don't know where it came from. The first Upadesha was ever done was the Veda Upadesha was done to Chaturmukha, and the Lord took the form of a Haigriva Rupa, that is a horse. So the first Upadesha came out of horse mouth. So that's probably why it is also. But at least, but today we are privileged to hear the God's qualities, and then his Swarupa and all those things from the Madhusudanji himself. So we are delighted to have him here. So now I will turn it over to him. So Madhusudanji, please take it over from here.
Thank you very much, GVG. Lasatu Srimad Ananda Tirthendruno Hrudambare Advacha Chandrika Swanta Santapam Vinikrantati Padavakya Pranamya Sirasa Gurum Yakarishye Yata Bhotam Vishnu Tattva Vinirnayam. So, yeah, fantastic introduction, GVG. Thank you so much. So, what we are dealing here is, let me go to the first slide. So I got 5 to 10 verses, verse 5 to 5, verse 10 to do challenging verses, but I'll do my best to try and give a bird's eye view of what's going on in this conversation between Arjuna and Krishna in Jnana Yoga. Okay. So as GVG said, Arjuna is asking, you are telling me that you taught this to Vivashwan, and Vivashwan then taught to his son, Shraddha Deva, who is also called Vaivashvata Manu. So this Manvantara is called Vaivashvata Manvantara. And then Shraddha Deva taught it to Ikshvaku. And then from there, this knowledge came down in generation. But here we are in this Yuga. Yeah, this is Dwapara Yuga. End of the Dwapara Yuga, 28th Dwapara Yuga, Krishna is there and Arjuna is there. They're having this conversation in the Mahabharata. So I don't understand this. What's going on here, Krishna? So Krishna at that point says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacha Arjuna tani aham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantapa. So in this, I just want to take up the very first verse. Note this point here. Vedavyas genius. He has always said Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Whenever Krishna speaks, Vedavyasa has said Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. He has not said Shri Krishna Uvacha or Shri Madhava Uvacha. Everywhere he has said Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So that itself is very significant, because if you go to Vishnu Purana, it gives a definition of who this Bhagavan is. And that is the answer to all this. And as GVG said, that this Krishna is an entirely different category because he is Bhagavan. Okay, so what does Vishnu Purana say? Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasaha shriyaha jnana vairagyashchaiva shannam bhaga itingana. So 6 primary group of qualities in infinite range and proportions that this sentient being has got, that nobody else has got. That is why he is called Bhagavan. The same Vishnu Purana also gives another definition of who Bhagavan iti, who Bhagavan is. Utpattim, pralayam chaiva, bhutanam, agatim, gatim, vetim, vidyam, avidyam, chase, vacho, Bhagavan iti. Okay, so that becomes very important for today's discussion about Bhagavan. So think about this concept of Bhagavan that Krishna, that Vedavyasa brings in Bhagavad Gita. That itself gives you a hint that this Krishna is an entirely different category altogether. But then the question still arises here for us is, the essence of Karma Yoga as taught in the second half of chapter 2 and in chapter 3, that essence of Karma Yoga is that you surrender all your actions to God. Krishna, Brahman, Paramatma, Rama, whatever you want to call him, you surrender all your actions unto him. But then the question is, why should we do this? Why on earth should we do this? All surrendering all our actions to this entity. Okay, so that karma yoga has to be brought in context. Why does that nishkama karma yoga has to be done? For that, we need to appreciate who this Krishna actually is, as described in Bhagavad Gita. So before we go into that, let me give you a background. And this is from Shvetashvatara Upanishad that talks about all of existence. It says, look, there is this guy called the Deva, and then there are all these Chetanas called the Nyas, and then there is the Jadas called Ajnas. So Shvetashvatara Upanishad gives us this three categorization of all of existence or reality as Brahman, called Deva, Jivas, and Jadas. So in this equation, the Deva is Krishna and the Jiva here is Arjuna, and with Arjuna, all of us. So that is the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? That through Arjuna, Krishna is giving his message to all of us. Okay? So here Krishna, the Deva, is saying, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha Arjuna. So the cha, note that word cha there. Bahuni me vyatitani. So Krishna says, in the past, we have taken innumerable births, Arjuna. And you have also taken innumerable births, cha Arjuna. Tava cha Arjuna. Okay, so again, this is interesting. So if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Tejo vari mrudam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrusha. If you remember that very first verse, it says three things, Tejo, Vari, and Mrudam. So Mruda is the Agnya, matter, which with creation, it takes different forms, isn't it? It becomes grosser and grosser, and it takes different forms. Chetanas, they are also going through samsaras and taking different births in different bodies. And then Brahman, Tejaha, he is also taking different manifestations in different yugas. So when you think of that, yes, there are three realities, there are three types of realities or all of existence. So all these three categories are also constantly having some form of manifestation of birth. Okay. So here Krishna is particularly implying about him and all these jivas, we are all taking these births. We are all coming in various times in this universe. But Krishna says, mate, there is an ocean of difference between you and me. Or in other words, there is an ocean of difference between Krishna and all the Jivaganas that seem to be taking birth again and again. And what is that ocean of difference? Tani aham veda sarvani. So aham, remember, look at this word aham. Again, my submission here is every time we see aham in Gita, think about the aham that we are currently contemplating in Mundaka Upanishad. Aheyatvat aham nama. Yeah, aham there means I am there in all the jivas as antaryamin, and I know what you guys are doing. I am your constant witness, and I'm doing and I'm making a note of all the things that you're doing. At the same time, I know everything in three perspectives. He knows them all. That is, he knows everything about his avatars. He knows all the incarnations of Arjunas, avatars of Arjunas, and all the countless births that we mundane jivas are taking. So he knows everything, number one. Number two, he not just knows them, but he knows them in their totality. He knows everything, past, present, and the future. So he knows the career of souls from past, present, and future. Okay. And as a direct experience, okay, this is an important point. When you look at Veda there, Tani Aham Veda Sarvani, Veda there is Vedana. Vedana means having a direct perceptive experience. Vedana means Sakshatkara, having a direct perceptual experience. But for us, we have memory. We can recall. Yeah, we can recall what happened in the past and so on. Whereas Paramatma can directly see everything in the past, present, and the future. So think about this issue around, for Jivas, it's the memory and the knowledge that we get. Whereas for Krishna, it is a direct perceptive knowledge, not only now, but of the past, of the present, and the future simultaneously. That is the greatness of Paramatma there. So when he says, Tanyaham Veda Sarvani, what he is actually talking about is his omniscience. Yeah, his omniscience. Sarvajñatva, as Mundaka Upanishad, as we are doing right now, says, Yes sarvajnaha sarvavid yasya jnanamayam tapaha tasmad etad brahma nama rupam annam cha jayate. Yes sarvajnaha. Okay. Talks about sarvajnaha means omniscience. And that is what Krishna is saying. Look, I am omniscient. You are not. Natvam vetta parantapa. You are lucky that you know what's going on in this Janma. You don't know what's happened in all the previous births. And through Arjuna, he is also reminding us that we don't know. We probably do not even know what's happened last week. We have forgotten about it. We're lucky enough that we know what happened when we were in our mother's womb, even though that we don't know. Do we know what's happened in our previous birth? Absolutely not. Whereas our Krishna as a Aham, as our Antaryamin, he knows everything simultaneously. Yeah, so that is the beauty of this particular verse. We says that my knowledge is different from yours. I know everything. I am a Sarvajna. You are an Alpajna, is what Krishna is saying in this. And that answers as to how he was actually teaching Vivaswan. And he was always there because, yes, Natve Vaham Jatunasam, 212, that Srinivasanji reminded us that in 212, he's already said, we as careers of, we as Jivas, our careers, we are eternal. Paramatma is eternal. So we know we both are eternal and we have been taking these births. But Krishna remembers everything. He knows everything because he's a Sarvajna. That is a direct answer. So why is this discussion about omniscience? Because we are asked to surrender all the work that we do to the Paramatma. So if we have to do that to God, we need to know about him, right? We need to know about his majesty. We need to know about his greatness. Only if somebody is great, you want to surrender something to him. If somebody is lower than you, nobody wants to surrender anything. Only if somebody is higher and supreme than you, that you surrender. So that surrender of action means that we need to understand who this Krishna is. And Krishna is reminding in this verse that he is Sarvajna. Okay? And he has taken innumerable avatars, like how we have taken our births in different bodies. He has taken innumerable avatars. And here is another important idea here that we need to understand. God has taken infinite incarnations, not just 10 avatars. Okay, so he has taken 10. It's not just 10, it's not 2, it's not 22, it's not 23, it's not 24. It's infinite incarnations. And our Vedas talk about him and his Vyuha forms, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva. Avatars, we know 10 primary avatars of Vishnu that we are all very familiar with. Then there is the Amshas, there is the Aveshas, there are the Vibhutis. We call this Paramatma as Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. They are all the same thing. Okay? Antaryamin, there are infinite souls in the universe. And in the infinite souls, he is there as their Antaryamin, as Bimbarupa. Okay? The key point that we should never ever forget is God and his qualities. God is a substance, okay? Like you, Jiva is a substance. This stone is also a substance. A mango is a substance. And the substance mango has got qualities. Similarly, Jivas have got qualities. Similarly, Paramatma has got qualities. Okay, so God has qualities. We have said he is the abode of infinite auspicious attributes. Jnanananda Swarupa is one of the commonest definitions of this person. Okay. So, but him and his qualities are non-different. That is a key message that we need to understand. It's called Yavad Dravyabhavi, Savvisesha Abeda. So, substance, eternals, for all eternal substances in Vedic philosophy, substance and their attributes are non-different. There's something for you to think about. So, Yavad Dravyabhavi, that is what Paramatma's primary character is, which we should never forget. Non-different. Why am I saying this? His Mula Rupa as Narayana, his Vyuha Rupas, his Avatara Rupas, his Amshas, his Avesha Rupas, Vibhuti Rupa, him when he's called as Brahman, him when he's called as Paramatma, him when he's, contemplated as Bhagavan, or when we do in deep meditation, when we are in Asampragnata Samadhi and we probably contact the Bimba Rupa or Antaryamin, they are all one and the same. There is absolutely no iota of difference between his Mula Rupa and Avatara Rupas. So Krishna now is teaching Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita. It is the same Krishna who was teaching Vivaswan. It is the same Krishna who is teaching Acharya in Badrikashrama. So it is exactly the same. There is no difference anywhere. And our Katha Upanishad, and again, always important to remind ourselves about our Upanishad. After all, Katha Upanishad and Gita are so intertwined. In fact, the philosophy of the Katha Upanishad is the philosophy of the Gita. So we should never waste an opportunity to think about it. Manasaiva idam aptavyam neha nanasti kinchana mrityosa mrityum gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. That is Yama's categorical teaching to Nachiketa, where he said, he who thinks that the Avatara Rupas and Bimba Rupas are different, he is doomed because they are non-different. Na, iha, Avatara, Bimba Rupa, na, a taint of difference, form, attributes, action, asti, is there, kinchana, even the slightest. The language is very clear. So the Avatara Rupas, the Mula Rupa, Bimba Rupa, they are all one and the same. And then Yama also gives a clear warning. Those who think that it is different, and there are folks out there who say, Krishna is a different avatara, Rama is a different avatara, this guy is Maryada Purushottama, this guy is Mula Rupa, and all that kind of stuff that people talk about. I just kindly request them to go to Upanishad and see what is the message there. What happens if we think them as different? Mrityosa mrityum gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. Mrityosa mrityum. So Yama itself is the Deva. He's looking after all the mrityus, right? He says he will go to the deepest of the hells. Mrityosa mrityum is andatamas or eternal hells. Is what the guy will go who thinks that Mula Rupa and Avatara Rupa are different. And that Krishna somehow is different from Brahman or Paramatma. Never make the difference. Yeah. But then, of course, how is this possible that the Avatara Rupas and the Mula Rupas are all the same? It's because of his omnipotency. Yeah. And that is called Achintya Adbhuta Shakti. Yeah. Omnipotency is another idea that we grasp in this particular discussion between Arjuna and Krishna. Contradictory characteristics present simultaneously, evidence from the Vedas, enhancing our understanding of the greatness of the God. That is the definition as given by Veda Vyasa in Brahmatarka about Achintya Adbhuta Shakti. And again, we have done this in Mandukya Upanishad, where Veda Vyasa has given a definition, Nastanatopi Parasya Ubayalingam Sarvatrahi. When we talk about Vishwa, Tejasa, and Prajna form of the Paramatma who controls the three states of consciousness of the Jivas, the discussion there is, are these Paramatma's forms different? No, Veda Vyasa has settled that they are one and the same. Because if we think that they are different, Yata Udakam Durge Vrishtam Paravateshu Vidavati, Evam Dharman Pritak Pashyan Taneva Anuvidavati. Again, Yama, categorical advice to Nachiketa, don't do that mistake because then you will fall down like a waterfalls. When it rains, the water gushes down to the bottom. Like that, you fall down to the deepest pits. Be very careful about how we say. So here, this is interesting. So he has said he has had multiple births before and then he remembers all of them. But then he, in the very next verse, he gives a very cryptic message. Ajo api san. Avyaya Atma, Bhutanamapi Ishwaro api san, Prakrutim swam adhishtaya sambhavami Atma Mayaya. So here he says, Ajaha, I am unborn, mate. Ajaha, I am unborn. Avyaya Atma, Atma there means his body, right? There are various meanings. So here the Atma means body. Avyaya, undying or deathless. I am unborn and I am undying and I have a deathless body and I am the Lord of all the beings. Bhutanamapi Ishwaraha. He is saying that, and then he clearly distinguishes that from Arjuna and all of us. What are we? There are four types of destruction that Acharya has told us. Swarupanasha, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Swarupanasha doesn't happen to Jivas and Paramatma, but for Jivas like us, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti and Apurnata is always there. We shed our bodies and go through samsara, suffer, and we are incomplete. We all know that we are incomplete. Whereas Paramatma is none of these. He is all four. His Swarupa Nasha is not there, Deha Hani is not there, Dukkha Prapti is not there, Apurnata is there. Okay. And that also answers how Krishna could have taught Vivashwan in the beginning of the Vaivashvata Manvantara because he is unborn. Okay. But then the next line gives a cryptic message saying, Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Although I am unborn, I am born in various yugas. So how do you reconcile that? That means manifesting. That Sambhavami there is, he manifests himself in various yugas. Using what? How does he manifest? Prakritim swam adhishtaya. Using the material world which is under his control, he manifests in this universe. Example, Devaki and Vasudeva, they got material bodies. He appears inside Devaki. And he is inside their house. He is doing all sorts of leelas in Vrindavan and Mathura. Okay? That is one way he uses. Prakriti also means Durga, also means Tamoguna. And that is also under his control, right? So he deludes the wicked who think he is material. So there are some folks who think this Krishna had a material body and he was doing here. And when he died, he went away and he even left his heart somewhere. Okay, so I don't know how they say this when you look at the Vedas. It is to delude the wicked that somehow we think that Krishna is material. Maybe around Krishna's avatar time, we were all hanging around. Maybe ants, I don't know what animals. We must have seen him, but we probably saw him as somebody like you and me, as a material being. Okay? And Prakritim there also means his Swabhava. It is his inherent nature. So Prakriti means what? Nature, right? Nature is what? Your own nature. It is his Swabhava that he manifests in various avataras in various yugas. Okay. So then he moves on. So we have understood omniscience, we have understood omnipotence. Next, the question is, if that is the case, he uses that his omnipotence and omniscience is understood, then when and why does he take avatars? Okay, so that is interesting because then there are these two important verses, very popular verses of Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujami aham paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. 4.7 and 4.8 are very, very popular verses. So he gives an idea as to why does he come? Okay. So this is interesting. Let's look at this word. I've just picked up a couple of words here. Dharma. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi. Whenever dharma is deteriorating, he's saying. So we have to understand what is the dharma. Okay. Dharma, if you look at Rig Veda, it talks about dharma 56 times. There are so many meanings of dharma. You can check it out. I've given you some primary ones. Dharma can mean righteousness. Dharma can mean religion, duty, piety, upholds order, rutam. That which upholds everything is also dharma. But primarily, if you want to take true information from this particular verse, dharma means two primary things. Dharma is the name of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Vishnu Sahasranama. Dharmaha is the name of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so Krishna says, whenever devotion to me deteriorates, whenever devotions to me reduces, okay, I appear at that point. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. When people have forgotten me, devotional service is at the bottom, bhakti yoga has gone down, that is when I appear. Okay, so that is the primary meaning of this particular verse. Of course, all other things are there when righteousness and everything has fallen down. For those of you who have seen Kalki 2898 that is running in our theaters, you will see that in that movie. But righteousness, religions, all those things might have gone down. But primarily, dharma means the Supreme Lord. The other meaning of dharma is Vedas. Upanishads are called dharmas. And when Krishna is, riding these four horses, we have done that before, that signifies the four Vedas. Whenever the knowledge of the Vedas deteriorates, I appear. Srinivasanji very beautifully mentioned about Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma teaching Chaturmukha Brahma, where the horse signifies the Vedas and the four legs signifies the four corners of the universe. Look at Veda Vyasa, end of the Dwapara Yuga, when Veda, knowledge of the Vedas was being lost, Narayana incarnates as Veda Vyasa to protect the Vedas. So that is also another important reason why Bhagavanta takes avatars. So Dharma means Supreme Lord and the Vedas. And he says, Tad Atmanam Srujami Aham. Whenever there is a deterioration of Dharma, or abhyuttanam adharma. So when there is an increase in adharma, I create myself. So again, we have to think about this. Can we, you and me, can we create ourselves? No, we need a father and a mother, and by some chance, through that Panchagni Vidya that we have learned, that we are in this world. Whereas he can create himself. When he say create, it means he manifests himself. And do what? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So this is important. Paritaha trana. Trana means to protect. Who? Sadhunam. Sadhus are what? Satvika jivas. Vinashaya. Destruction of who? Dushkruta, the wicked. To destroy the wicked. So here you may have a question. Is God cruel here? That he is protecting the sadhus whereas destroying the wickeds. Okay, no, our Paramatma is completely impartial, and Venki ji is going to talk about that to us. He is completely impartial. He is doing stuff to jivas what their swabhava or their nature is. For Satvika jivas, by giving them the opportunity for devotional service, he gives them their salvation or moksha, eternal bliss. That is what Paritranaya Sadhuna is. Whereas for Duryodhana or Tataki or Maricha, what does he do for them? Vinashaya cha dushkrutam, so that what happens? They attain their salvation, which is their eternal hell or andatamas. So God is very impartial. He is not cruel. He just gives them the facilities to work out their salvation, whatever that might be. And then what does he do? Dharma samstapanarthaya. What is the dharma? Bhagavata dharma. That is the dharma of the supreme. To establish that, so that Satvika jivas can attain mokshas and the wicked ones can keep abusing Paramatma and then go to Tamo-yoga. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I incarnate in various yugas. And Srinivasanji gave us about the various yugas. Currently, just a reminder, we are in the 7th Manvantara. 50 years of Chaturmukha has gone. We are in the first day of Chaturmukha. In the 7th Manvantara of the 28th yuga. This is where we are at this point. So, Vivaswan, when Krishna taught Vivaswan, that was about 120.531 million years ago. Just some interesting facts that you may want to think about. Okay. So, I incarnate in various yugas, says Krishna. How is God's incarnation or appearance different from our births? Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanmam Neiti mameti so Arjuna. My birth, Arjuna, is different from yours. You have to get a material body. You always have had a linga sharira. Yeah, since even in Pralaya, you have been in my womb. You infinite souls, I have always had linga sharira. And when I decide to bring creation, you acquire gross material bodies. And through your karmas, you acquire different bodies. Okay, whereas that is your birth. Whereas my birth is different. I am having these various manifestations and I'm creating, I'm doing so many stuff all the time. And Srinivasanji mentioned that Krishna says, I have to do lots of things I have to create. If I don't do something, the whole world comes to a stall. So I am doing actions. My birth and appearances are all I am doing. What is it? They're all entirely different, Krishna. I am transcendental. I am divine. Totally different from you. Okay. And what is that? We are going to do this next week, this particular verse in Mundaka Upanishad. Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapo brahma paramrutam. Vishwam karma is all the actions. Tapaha is the jnana. So jnana and karma and icha, everything in Paramatma is the same. His icha is his karma. His karma is his icha. Because as I said, that eternal entity, it is yavad dhavya bhavi. There is no difference between substance and attributes. So he says, I am entirely different. He who knows this tattvataha, yo veti tattvataha. I like this word tattvataha, tattvataha, tattvavadataha, as stated by Acharya. Tattvavadataha yo veti. What happens to him? Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. So that fellow will never get another body and he will reach me. Again, look at that. Mameti Arjuna. He reaches me. He does not say he becomes me. So what's the language of the Gita? Every opportunity, think about the philosophy of the Vedas. After all, Gita is the summary of the Upanishads. Mam eti, not Mam bhavati. Mam eti, so Arjuna, he will reach me. So why is he saying that? The question is, can we just knowing the first line, the Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Yo Veti Tattvataha, just knowing that his incarnation is divine, his actions are divine, is different, is non-different, will that again for us in this satsang today, we have discussed that. Will that give us moksha? No. We have to literally read between the lines here and we have to expand this further. It needs further explanation as given by Jayatirtha. Paramatmano atyanta bhinnasya. Note that very first word of Jayatirtha. Me and Jiva, me and Paramatma, we are infinitely different. That is the first thing that we need to understand. Paramatmano atyanta bhinnasya. Swatah chidanandatmakasyapi jivasya anadi avidya kama karmadi nimitto ayam paramartata eva anyata karaha dukkadi anartaha na parameshwara prasadat rute apagacchati nacha asakshat kruto asau prasidati nacha avidita swarupaha shakyate sakshat kartum iti sakala guna karataya nishesha dosha gandha vidurataya chatam प्रतिपादयितुम् अशेष आम्नायाः प्रवर्तन्ते तद उपाकरण भूता च ब्रह्ममीमांसा इति परमार्थः. This is a summary of Vedic philosophy, that this Paramatma can be known only through the Vedas, which has to be read through the Brahma Sutras. He is to be known as the abode of infinite auspicious attributes and without any defects. Only then we understand the majesty or the greatness of Paramatma. Only when we understand how great he is and how small we are, then we dedicate ourselves to him, including all our actions. Okay? That process eventually leads to devotional service. Yeah? And that will ultimately lead us seeing him. Unless we see him, we cannot see him. Unless we see him, we cannot obtain his ultimate grace. Of course, his grace is there always. But that aparoksha jnana or sakshatkara is one of the important prerequisites as described in the 4th adhyaya of Brahma Sutra. That aparoksha jnana is important for our final release. So God's grace is absolutely essential for final release of bondage. So for this whole thing to happen, we need to have a profound admiration of the divine majesty. And without that, this is not going to happen. I am not God. Yeah, he is a atyanta bhinnasya. He is so infinitely different and infinite to the power of infinite. He is bigger than me. And I am nothing. I'm not even a dust. That is the approach. And that admiration of that Paramatma becomes your bhakti. That is what bhakti is all about, is the admiration of the profound greatness of Paramatma. And Jayatirtha again says this in Parameshwara Bhaktir Nama Niravadika Ananta Anavadya Kalyana Gunatva Jnana Purvakaha Swatma Atmiya Samasta Vastubhyo Api Ananta Gunadiko Nirantara Prema Pravaha. Constant devotional service to Paramatma. The question is, this is all high, lofty philosophy. Has anybody achieved liberation taking this route? And in the 10th verse, he says, yes, Krishna, 100% people have achieved this. How have they achieved this? Vita raga bhayakrodan manmaya mam upashritaha. Bahavo, many have attained this. How? Jnana tapasa. By knowledge and meditation and contemplation, they have achieved through this process that I have discussed right now, and they have purified themselves. Putaha, they purified themselves. Madbhavam agataha. They reach me there. Yeah, sorry about this. So my internet crashed upon me. So Krishna is sending me a divine message there, I think, again telling us that he is totally under control and none of us are under control. The internet is not under control, that he is the person who is actually looking after everything. But anyway, he has given us our internet back again. So I think that is a divine providence here. at the right point, he said, I'm going to cut now and make you all contemplate, and then I'm going to give you back the internet collection. So where were we? We are in the 10th verse. We're talking about this greatness of Paramatma and the bhakti and the devotion. That is what the admiration, the divine admiration is supposed to bring us in us. So then the question was, has anybody achieved this? Krishna said, yes, so many have achieved this. Bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agataha. How did they achieve this? Vitaraga Bayakrodo, Manmaya, Mamupashritaha, they've attained this great journey, the journey of souls that we have done on so many times, exactly beautifully described by Jayatirtha. The first thing is Paramatmano Atyanta Bhinnasya. We are different from Paramatma. He is an amazing thing and we are nothing. Okay. And to illustrate and bring home those truths, he talks about the greatness of his divine incarnation and how he has given this knowledge eternally. This knowledge has been given eternally, as how Srinivasanji mentioned. So on that note, I was going to pass on to Venki ji, and over to you, Venki, to share your slides, and I will just stop sharing mine. I'll make you co-host in a minute.
I'm already the co-host,
Okay.
Madhuji.
Okay, go for it.
If you are able to share my see my screen, please let me know.
Yeah, all fine.
Okay, you're able to see it. Harihi Om Haigriva Haigriveti Ovade Tasya Nissarate Vani Jannukanya Pravahavat Mukopi Yat Prasadena Mukunda Shainayate Rajarajayate Rikto Raghavendram Tamashriyari Om. So, praying to Haigriva, where GV and Madhuji, both of them brought that particular avatara in the discussion today, and with my namaskaras to Swamiji and my gurus Keshavarao and Meera Tadipatri ji, and then to the seniors here, Madhuji, Suresh ji, and to my fellow students. What I want to do is, I have been given these 5 shlokas to cover, from Ye Yathamam Prapadyante to Purvatarang Kratam, which I shall try to do fairly quickly, as much as I can. One of the things that Madhuji just said is Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. So it wouldn't do for you to be afraid. It wouldn't do for you to worry. And why should you not worry and why should you not be afraid is because the Lord, who is actually in control, is completely impartial and completely benevolent. Because he is impartial and he is benevolent, all of the work that you will do will be rewarded justly. And because he is benevolent, he's not going to be withholding his blessing on you should you deserve the blessing. And so this is what the Lord is explaining now of the doshas that can be present. The 2 most important doshas are the doshas of partiality and the doshas of cruelty. And so we call them in Sanskrit as Vaishamya and Nairghanya. Ghani is benevolence. Nairghanya is not having the benevolence. And Vaishamya is partiality. And so he doesn't have the Vaishamya dosha and Nairghanya dosha. And how do we know that is because of the Lord's statement, which you can see right there. So the Lord says, Ye yathamam prapadyante tans tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartamanu vartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha. So rather than give you a word by word meaning, I put the Sanskrit Anvaya there, which is fairly easy to understand, which I'll read out. Hey Partha, meaning Pritha's son, Partha, Ye yathamam prapadyante. Howsoever the people, manushyaha, mam prapadyante, howsoever they shall approach me, aham tathaiva tam bhajami, meaning I meet them in the same way that they desire to meet me.
Venkiji, sorry to interrupt. Please put the slideshow on.
Oh, it went away? Sorry, hang on 1 second.
You can see the slides, but make it into slideshow, Venkiji.
Oh, okay, hang on 1 second. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, so now you don't see the slide, do you? Do you see the slideshow, or do you see the slides one into the other?
It is all like it's a multiple thing. So you have to make one. Yeah, now it's good.
Would you see it now?
Yeah, it's good now. It's good now.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So the Lord says, Ye yatha mam prapadnante tans tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasyaha. The Anvaya is like this. Hey Partha, listen to me. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. The people, howsoever they shall approach me, prapadyante, aham tathaiva tam bhajami. I'm going to be approaching them in the exact same way. Why? And he says, Sarvashaha Manushyaha Mama Vartma Eva Anuvartate iti Anvayaha. So all of the people are going to be following my own path, the one path that I have set up. What it means by that is, we say commonly that the sun rises in the east. What we really should have been saying is the sun is where the sun is, and the earth is rotating, which causes the sun to appear as if it is rising from the east, isn't it? The Lord is saying, the people are approaching me and I approach them, where in fact, the Lord is actually making the people approach him. And by making the people approach him, he is also then approaching them. So that is why he is explaining in the second line that very important attribute of his, which is Mama Vartmanu Vartante Manushya Partha Sarvashaha. They appear to me on my own path, the path that I have set up, and there is no other path for them to follow. So because I am the independent entity and I am completely impartial, which is what I have explained in the first line, and I am benevolent, so therefore, whatever, it appears as if the people are approaching him when in fact the Lord is making them and they are approaching him, and then he is reciprocating appropriately. This is very similar to the shloka that the Lord says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti napriyaha ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya maite teshu chapyaham, in the 9th chapter, where sama, the samatva of the Lord, is explained and extolled a lot in many of these chapters, because the Lord is impartial, he is present everywhere, and then he is benevolent, so that any work from the individual that the Lord makes them do is appropriately rewarded. And so therefore, because the Lord is the only independent entity, all the jivas are eternally dependent on him. And the Lord has said in earlier shloka, Natvevaham jatanasam natvam neme janadhipaha, that he's protecting every single jiva. He's protecting every single jiva, which means he's protecting the characteristic of every single jiva and giving him or her an appropriate way to go forward. And so the question that we have right now is, if it turns out that Vitaraga Bhayak Krodha Manmaya Mamupashrita Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavamagataha, the Lord is saying a lot of people have already reached me using this process. Our question is, if a lot of people have reached the Lord, how come all of the people are not reaching the Lord? He said Bhavaha, right? But he didn't say Sarvashaha. But here he is using the word Sarvashaha, meaning all of the people that approach him, he approaches them. But there is a lot of people who have actually approached him and have come to his abode. And so therefore, what I'm going to do right now in this discussion is introduce two concepts, which is what the Acharya has introduced: a concept of Bhagavatas and a concept of Trividyas. The Bhagavatas are those that have very specific and deep understanding of the Lord. So, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam, Evan Yo Vetti, Tatvataha, Madhuji said Tatvataha. People, Bhagavatas, are people, jivas, who have specific and deep understanding of the Lord. And whereas Trividyas, not Trividhas, not the Mahaprana, but the Alpa Prana, these are the people who have a general and vague understanding of the Lord. So you cannot call them uninformed either. They are informed, but they have a general and vague understanding of the Lord. And so therefore, we're not going to see how the Trividyas and how the Bhagavatas approach the Lord. And then it will also now become clear how the Lord is approaching them. And then you can see how the Lord is providing just and beneficial results for both. So if I go to the next slide, this is the essential difference between these two classes of jivas. And later, I'm going to make it more general and explain all the other classes of jivas. So a Bhagavata jiva is a mumukshu, meaning he is a mukti yogya jiva. And so he has swakarma acharana, meaning he follows his own duties. He doesn't desire karma phala. So he has given the phala kamana tyaga. And he has in his own mind, he or she, the Bhagavat Swatantra Viveka, meaning I am not the doer. The Lord is making me do it. Nahankarta Harikarta. So if you have all three of these attributes and do your karma, that is what is called as a Bhagavata karma. And that is the karma that is the most treasured karma. And that is the what the Lord is meaning by saying Vitaraga Bhayakrodhaha and Yevanya Ivetti Tattvataha. So this is a Tattvataha understanding of the Lord. Whereas a Trividya, a lot of people, they do either their work or somebody else's work because they feel like doing it. They have various transactional kamanas in their own mind. I'm going to do this worship so that I may get this benefit, that kind of stuff. And then finally, whatever little work that they are doing, they also have a feeling of ownership of that work, that they feel that they have themselves done that work. So it is a swatantriya bhava. So because they fail on all three ends, parakarma acharana, phala-kamana sanga, and swatantriya bhava, meaning they are unable to understand that the Lord is making them do it. And because of these reasons, the Trividyas do not acquire the bigger result. They acquire results, but in proportion to what their sadhana is. And so that's the reason why the Lord has been saying, basically, ye yatha mam prapadyante tans tathaiva bhajamyaham. If a Trividya comes and approaches me, I shall respond to him as a Trividya would want me to respond. And if a Bhagavata approaches me, then I shall respond in a way that Bhagavata needs to be responded to. So if I go to the next slide, it becomes a little bit clearer. Kankshantah karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha kshipram hi manuhe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. And so the anvaya for it is yasmat manushya loke, in this manushya loke, since karmaja siddhim kshipram hi bhavati. So people feel that in this manushya loka, the attitudes and karmas that they have done, the siddhi, meaning the karma phala, is gotten very quickly. Tasmat, for that reason, iha loke, meaning in this loka, in this manushya loka, karmanam siddhim kankshantah, for those people that desire the karmas to occur very, very quickly, the karma phala to accrue to them very quickly, those people, devataha bhajante, they worship sundry deities. Not sundry deities in a pejorative way, but deities sometimes, not even the Lord himself. Better would be approach the Lord, do the activity without actually asking the Lord for any result. The second best would be, if you need to ask the result, approach the God, Lord Krishna, directly. But these people don't even do that. They approach various other entities lower in hopes that their prayers are going to be answered much more quickly. But one thing to keep in mind is either directly or indirectly, the Lord is the only one who is going to be giving them their result. Nobody else can give them the result because nobody else has independence. So I'm going to describe the difference between a Bhagavata and a Trividya with a very egregious example. So for example, there is a person working in the food service industry, for example. And so the person working in the food service industry would be working either for tips or would be eyeing a promotion that is available on the job. So if a person is working solely for the tips, it is a very immediate, transactional, and mercenary effect that the person is doing. And the result is small. They will get tips that will help them get through day to day. But if there is a person who is looking for a more lasting, more strategic, and a more lofty goal, like a promotion, the amount of work that you will need to do to get promotion is much more longer, is much more strategic, and it is spread over a longer period of time. But the gain that they will get is going to be more permanent. And so similar is the case with the Trividyas and the case with our Bhagavatas, where the Bhagavatas have mukti, moksha in their mind. And so therefore, they are going towards getting moksha, which requires a significant amount of effort on their part, whereas the Trividyas are looking more for tips, which is to get through a day-to-day activity. But a good manager, a just manager, understands the mentality of both of his employees. He knows that this employee wants tips, this employee wants a promotion, but he also wants to provide the person who is working for tips a taste of how he might go get a promotion, because he would be failing in his duty if he didn't do it. And so therefore, a good employer will give good opportunities for even the tip earner to perhaps go and seek promotion. But at the end of the day, if that employee is not interested in it, cannot do it, then he will make it so that the employee is happy in a position where he could earn tips, and then promote the employee that is deserving of promotion. And yes, if time calls, the employer will also be willing to fire employees because they are either not working appropriately or seeking tips in unethical ways, and so on and so forth. So just as the food service environment is a proving ground for various industrious employees to do various kinds of things, the samsara here is a proving ground for jivas to explore, to investigate, to understand their own nature, and then understand also the nature of the Lord. Why is the Lord's nature needing to be understood? We'll talk about that in the 15th shloka. So now we come to a blockbuster shloka, isn't it? And this shloka, which is a very popular shloka, is Chaturvaranyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashah tasya kartaram apimam vidhi akartaram avyayam. And so the anvaya for it is maya guna karma vibhagashah chaturvaranyam srishtam, meaning the Lord is saying that he has created a very intricate system based on gunas and karmas and slicing and dicing them of the Chaturvarnya system. And then tasya kartaram mam, I have created that. Akartaram, meaning nobody else has created me, or you can view me as a non-creator of this system because it is a classification that has been done. Akartaram, nobody has created me. Api avyayam, and I am avyaya, meaning I am nirantara, same. And then vidhi, understand it well. That is the anvaya for it. So there are many reasons for this shloka to be here. And let me talk about a couple of things associated with this shloka. We have previously seen in the shloka the word manushe, manushyaha. So the word manushyaha has come in multiple times. And so this is in context of the manushya. But also the swabhava of the manushya has also come in the earlier description. And so therefore, what we have to think about is the varna that is being taught here. What is that varna being talked about? Is that a varna that is jati, which is what is happening in our current state? Is that a varna which is more spiritual, that is a swabhava or the nature of the jiva? And what does this word srishtam mean? How did he create it? Because we know the Lord has not created the jivas. All of that is going to be answered in the next 1 or 2 slides. But one very important thing that you guys need to know is doshai raitehi kulaghana varna sankarakarakhi utsadyante jati dharmaha kuladharmascha shashvataha. And so when Arjuna was in the Vishada, when he began the Gita, remember, he had the word Varna Sankara, then he had the word Kula, and then he had the word Jati, and then Kula Dharma. So he had all the words in the word salad in that one shloka, which is why I selected the 43rd shloka. There is Kula Gnana, Kula is there, Jati is there, then there is Varna is there, and Varna Sankara is there. And so we want to kind of like unlayer this and then go line by line about describing what Varna is, what Jati is, what Kula is, what are the what are the Kula Dharmas, and why did the Lord say? And the Lord is saying basically, look, Arjuna, I know you are worried about Varna Sankara, but remember, I am the guy, I am the person who actually created the Varna. The Chaturvarnya system itself has been created by me. And so therefore, because it has been created by me, it behooves you to listen to me. It behooves you to understand the Varna and the Varna concept the way I want you to understand it. So the most important thing for everyone to realize is all the jivas are eternal. So the Lord has not created the jivas. The jivas are there eternally with their linga sharira. And each of these jivas, right from Brahma to a blade of grass and to Kali, each of them go to their own destinations. And there are varieties of jivas. And we are now going to talk about the intrinsic nature of the jivas. And then we are then going to talk about their jatis and kulas and how all of that interaction happens. So it's very important for you to know Varana, Jati, Ashrama, Swabhavika Guna, Prakritika Guna, all of these where the words are similar and similar sounding, but they have different meaning. So the example that I give is my son's name is Shrikara, my sister's name is Sridevi, my uncle's name is Sridhara, and we call them Shri. And then it's as if we have a shortage of names. So when we say Shri, they automatically understand one is Shri, Shrikara, one is Shri, Sridevi, one is Shri, Sridhara. And similar way, when we say gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tama Guna, they all mean differently. And Varana could mean differently in context of Jati and other places. So we'll unlayer them and then we will be able to see all of it. But I want to remind you one thing, Madhusudanji has already gone through a significant portion of this already in his classes. And so I want to acknowledge that a lot of you already know a lot of it. So, but I am doing this as my own sadhana and trying to explain the best I can. And it's an opportunity for me to get read up better. So we know from the Purusha Sukta that Brahmano asya mukhamasit bahurajanyakritah urutadasya yadvaishah padbhyam shudro ajayata. So we know Brahmana, Brahma Anati, the person who understands Brahma, Rajanya, right? Raja is Ranjayati iti Rajaha, and then Vaishya, and then Shudra. These are the four classifications that came directly out of the cosmic manifestation. The cosmic manifestation is spirit, right? So the leg. So we are going to talk about a particular property of the Lord called Swagata Bheda Vivarjitatva in the next slide. The Lord doesn't have any difference within himself. And so Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra that you are seeing here, they are all given bodies, and they're all allowed to behave from the same one God. And so therefore, it wouldn't do for you to think that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, the Varanas that have been described here, all ultimately can go towards the Lord. And so one thing also, I talked about Varana, Jati, and all, but then there is one very important thing. The word caste, which is being used right now, is actually from the colonial Americas. Believe it or not, the Spaniards and the Portuguese came to South America, and the highest layer for them was the Peninsulares. When they got born in South America, they were called Creoles. If they married indigenous people, they were called mestizos. If they married black people, they were called then mulattoes. And then there were the Zambos, and then the indigenous people and Africans. And there was a structure, very, very tight structure based on this whole entire thing. And so when the British came in, it was a very easy thing for them to take the word caste and then apply it to the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra jatis that we had back then. So now I want to introduce some concepts for us to go through this particular shloka. There is what I call a jiva continuum. The jiva continuum. So there is Sattvika, Rajasika, Tamasika jivas. There is no one jiva who is completely Sattvika or completely Tamasika. Kinchit, there is Sattva, Rajas, Tamo, Swabhavika gunas that are present. And then in the Acharya system, we also know that there are Stri jivas and Purusha jivas. Three jivas, three swabhava jivas, and then Purusha swabhava jivas. And these three swabhava, Purusha swabhava jivas can be completely sattvic with very little rajas and tamas, or completely tamasic with very little rajas and sattva. And then there is a set of jivas who are very, very largely rajasic with very little tamasic and sattvic. And so there is sattva, 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 sattva jivas who are Brahma and Vayu. And then there is tamas, tamas, tamas jivas, which are Kali. And indeed, there is one jiva who is Rajasa, 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 and that guy is called Puranjana. And so the Sattvika jivas, Swagata, these people have a natural affinity towards the Lord. And because they approach the Lord in all humility, the Lord then also admits them into his kingdom. The Tamasika people don't approach the Lord, and they are very haughty and arrogant towards him. The Nitya Samsarins, on the other hand, are perennially interested in trifling and middling fruits. And so even if they approach the Lord or one of the deities, it is only to get their middling results obtainable for them. And then finally, there is a class of jivas in here who are Rajasika Sattvikas. Rajasika Sattvikas, who are not Devatas, not Nitya Samsarins, but who are in the middle, and for them only, for them and them only, the Chaturvarnya system applies. The Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra classification that has been described is for this one set of people. There is no Varana or Ashrama for the Devatas and the Pitras. There is no Varana Ashrama for the Nitya Samsarins, and then there is no Varana for Kali and all of the other Daityas. No Varana at all. The Varana occurs only for this. So if someone says to you, I know your Swabhava, and your Swabhava is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or then you should feel very happy that you at least have the opportunity to go to moksha. And so when someone says that you are of a particular Varana, Shudra Varana, for example, you should feel very privileged, because then that Varana for the Swabhava guarantees that you will go to moksha. And so the beauty of the Lord is all of these jivas are different, but he protects every single one of the jivas. Can you believe that? He protects Kali completely, just as he protects Brahma completely, and then he protects all the inconsequential jivas in the middle. Such is the majesty of the Lord. And that's what you need to understand. And that's what Krishna is encouraging you to understand. So now, I am not going to go into this in detail, but you can study this a little bit. The most important thing for you guys to understand, all of us to understand, is that the Lord himself is completely and totally different from every single jiva. For starters, first of all, the Lord enters every single jiva, or he's always existing with his Swarupa in each one of these jivas. The Lord manifests himself as avatars, in which case he's also completely whole. The Lord also then manifests himself inside the Prakritika Sattva Guna, the Prakritika Rajasika Guna, and Prakritika Tamasika Guna, which are different from the Swabhavika Sattvika Rajasika and Tamasika. And then the Lord has Stri form and Purusha form. And so Prata Sankalpa Gadya Raghavendra Swamiji actually describes several Stri forms of the Lord. And so this Lord, who is completely eternal, self-dependent, always complete, has knowledge, will, and action as his own self. So we call it Jnana Ichha Kriya. Jnana of the Lord is not different from the Lord. Karma of the Lord is not different from the Lord. And then Ichha of the Lord is not different from the Lord. That's why we say Ichha Matram Prabho Srishti. So the Lord wills and the creation happens. Why? Because he doesn't need an additional attribute of the knowledge or an additional attribute of the action. The will is enough. So when we say God's will, we mean God. Similarly, he has other attributes. The Avaishamya, Samatva, Ghrinatva, Sarvajnatva, and Sarva Vyaptitva. And so pervasiveness, omniscience, benevolence, impartiality, all of these attributes are him, and he is him. And he is the one who pervades the entire world. So when we hear the word yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, think about the infinite kindness of the Lord. He could have made the dharma stay eternally correct without actually manifesting, because he's after all in every single jiva. It's not as if the dharma has gone off kilter and he has to come in and like fix something. It is in his nature to let the 4 yugas happen, which is why the things are happening the way they are. And so for you, the key is that there is three Purushas, there is Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, then there is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, which are Swabhavika Varanas inside Manushottama Jivas. Then there is Manusya Sharira, which can be Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and others that are possible. And then there is ashramas, which is brahmacharya, garihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. And then all of these interact and react with sattva, rajas, tamas in the prakriti, which then gives rise to a whole bunch of jati, kula, desha, kala. and then feed back the karma back again, and then gets you newer and different dehas. And you should be lucky if we get another Manusha deha, then we can do more sadhana as we go up. And in all of these, janma, karma, guna, karma. And the karmas that you can do are sakama karma, nishkama karma, nivritti karma. In fact, there is this whole entire karma sannyasa yoga is full of karma. And then my friend Sheshu Prakash ji will explain that in more detail. So here is another view of this jiva continuum. You see, the elders have described the jiva as SSSS, which is satvika, 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 up to tamasika, 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 tamasika. So you have 3 raised to 4, 81 classifications that can happen. Of these, all the sattva pradhana jivas are either devatas or pitrus and gandharvas, which I have indicated here. The satvika, 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 satvika is Brahma Vayu. Satvika rajasas are Saraswati Bharati Devi here. This one is Rudra. This one is Indra. By the way, this is where Arjuna is. Imagine the lofty stature where Arjuna is. He's right here. Paramamukti Yogya Jivi, that Arjuna is. Then there is Brahaspatis and Munis. But this Arjuna, who is Parama Satvika, is now endowed with a Kshatriya Jati. Do you understand? A person who doesn't have ashrama at all, varana at all, is now endowed with a Kshatriya Sharira right now in this example here. And then the Rajasika Jivas are Rajaka Satvikas, Rajasa Rajasas, Rajasa Tamasas, and they are in this particular way. And Rajasa Jivas, they are Nitya Samsarins, of which Puranjana appears right here in the middle. And these are Nitya Sansarins. They don't want a lasting, abode. And so therefore they are very happy being Tribhuva Niraya Bhuhu. And so therefore they get Nitya Sansara. And then all these Tamasika people, they describe them as Naradhamas. These people are Naradhamas. They are the lower class of people. And then Daitya Sevakas, meaning people who are little helpers of the Daityas. And then finally, Tamasa is Kali himself. Now imagine this. Tamasa, Kali, Satvika, Bhima, which is Vayu, and then Satvika, Rajasa, Arjuna, all 3 of them are endowed with a Kshatriya Sharira on the battlefield. On the battlefield, all of these people who supposedly have no Varna have gotten a Jati. And so therefore, here is a pictorial representation of how this works based on what a Brahmana is, what a Kshatriya is, what a Vaishya is, and what a Shudra is. And then there is a different way of looking at it too. The gunas that the Lord is describing are Shamadama Sampattu for Brahmanas. So if you are endowed with a Brahmin Sharira, it would do for you to practice Shamadama. For a Kshatriya, which is what the Lord is advising him right now, it would do for him to practice Shaurya and Dhairya and Ishatva and Dana. And then for a Vaishya, it would do for them to do Krishi, Goraksha, Vanijya. And then for the Shudras, it would do for us to be in the service of all of the folks that we have. And in fact, we have this very famous verse from Acharya, which is Nana Janasya Shushrusha. Even in Brahmanas also, people have defined as Paramahamsa, Hamsa, Bahudaka, Kutichaka, and these are all further fine striations as you go through. And all of it is available in various texts. I spent a bunch of time going through multiple texts and put this one view together for you to be able to contemplate as time goes by. Here is another view for you to think about. This is a really nice view because it shows the Lord at the center of the universe. The Lord's avatars are exactly the Lord, no difference in the avatars, and the Lord is present every single spot amongst the devatas, in the daityas, amongst, of course, all the varnas. And then these are swabhavika varnas, where this is a Brahmana varna, as we defined earlier. This is Kshatriya, Kshatra, this is Vaishya, and this is Shudra. And these are all innate quality classifications. And these entire sets of jivas work out their own karmas. And with the guna karma vibhaga, they get endowed with various bodies, Brahmana body or a Kshatriya body, a Vaishya body or a Shudra body or other bodies. And in each of these bodies, in each of these souls, they have the Lord present inside them in the same way. And then finally, these Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras also then intersect again with the guna karmas as they approach in the universe. And so they participate in knowledge sharing, security assessments, economic development, and then service industry. And so one of the things that you have to understand this shloka is Chaturvaranyam, meaning not only Chaturvaranya, but every single jiva has been endowed by the Lord himself. Srishtam, when he says Chaturvaranyam Maya Srishtam, you should not think of it as only Shrishti. By Upalakshana, it is Shrishti, Sthiti, Laya, Niyamana, Jnana, Adnyana, Bandha, Moksha, and even Moksha. The Lord is the only one who does Shrishti that he has claimed, but he also does all these other 7 activities, the most crest jewel of which is giving and granting moksha. So the same Lord is present everywhere and is working his magic, but he has not created the jivas, but he is innately aware of all of the jivas and their swarupa gunas. Why? Because he is Sarvavit. Finally, for those people who are interested in Harikathamrita Sara, I encourage you to take a look at it. I always love the work. So the 2018 and 2019 actually describe this progression in very nice and graphic detail. It's a fun thing to do. So to complete the story here, Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti ma yo abhijanati karma bhirna sabadhyate. Ma. So Bhagavan says, I am not wrapped up in the actions. Why? Because my mind is very, very clear. It is in my nature to do this particular set of actions, being impartial to everyone. Because the action themselves don't bind me, the results of the actions absolutely don't bind me. So Gandha, like Madhuji said, there is no dosha Gandha in the Lord, so there is no karma phala, because he is the one who is the bestower of karma phala. He's not going to get bound up in them. And so the Lord is now encouraging Arjuna. He's saying, iti ma yo abhijanati. So if someone understands me, meaning the Lord, not himself, right? Because some Mayavadis would have said that when they say, if this word ma was not there, they would think, if I understand that I am karma alimpa and I am karma aspruha, I'm going to lose karma. No, you need to understand that the Lord is not karma limpa and not karma phalaspruha. So then you will also be, to your own extent, not baddha, not mixed up in your own karma. So what should you do? You should do your just work. And that is what is explained in the final shloka here. The Lord is explaining the big message. Knowing all of this is not enough for you, because I will know that you know only when you also act. That is why karma is the most important. So after this little detour, the Lord is now coming back and nailing the thing on Arjuna. Evam jnatva kritam karma, like Srinivasanji said, the karma was being done. People were understanding it. The Janaka, Priyavrata, Nimi, Ikshwaku, Shraddhadeva, all of those guys were understanding it. And they were doing it too, because they were mumukshubhihi. They were exceptionally qualified for moksha. And even these jnanis, they were doing the karma. And so therefore, you should do it too, just as your elders, your illustrious elders did the karma. Why should you do it? Arjuna is an Uttamadhikari. He is a celestial. He is now in a Kshatriya Sharira. But even he is exalted to do his duty. Why? As his ancestors did? Because celestial jnanis, Mahaadhikaris, must also act. Why? Especially because they have the correct jnana, they can be good role models when they act correctly. And so the vast multitude of Manushas who were there on that battlefield on that day, and for us who are eagerly awaiting their next move, they happen to be very, very good role models. And so the Lord is also, of course, want to give them a reward for it, and their reward, they don't accept it. I mean, they don't go after it or hanker after it, but their reward is an increase of moksha sukha avirbhava in the moksha. So even jnanis are required to do karma. And in fact, the way they want you to do karma is you need to do your own karma, swakarma. You need to not have phala, kamana. You need to be able to tyaga the phala kamana. You need to understand that you're doing it for the Lord's glory. And then you need to understand that the Lord is making you do it. So if you have these 4 components, which have been summarized here, then your karma is a Bhagavata karma. This karma is going to be liberating for you. And why is it liberating? Because samoham sarvabhuteshu. If you do activities which are going to bring you towards liberation, the Lord will also then grant you liberation. Such is the message. But what karma to do, how to do the karmas, what karmas are, what not karmas are, and those will be discussed the next time by Prakash Ji, which is going to be a super interesting discussion. With this, I'm going to finish up my discussion here and then hand over the connection to Madhuji and to Srinivasanji.
Okay, thank you, Venkateshji. So it was very good. I know that we have passed the time that is allocated. We are already like 10 minutes over. And the speakers will still be around to answer any questions anybody have. If people have other things to do, if they have to go, they can free to do so. Feel free to do so. But if somebody has questions, they can stick around. The speakers will be also be our
Yeah, so
questions.